You are already familiar with time misbehaving. You notice it in the small, ordinary moments of your life. When you are waiting, time stretches thin, each second long and hollow. When you are absorbed, time compresses, folding itself away so neatly that hours vanish without leaving a trace. Even before science speaks, your own experience whispers that time is not as solid as it pretends to be. Tonight, you let that whisper grow softer and whiter. You are not here to solve time or control it. You are only here to notice it. To feel how it flows through you, around you, and sometimes against you. You allow yourself to stop treating time like a ruler and begin sensing it like a current. You breathe slowly, and with each breath, you realize how strange it is that time seems to move forward no matter what you do. It does not pause when you close your eyes. It does not hurry when you are late. It simply continues, steady and quiet, like a river in the dark. And yet, your experience of that river changes constantly. Sometimes it rushes. Sometimes it pulls. For most of your life, you were taught that time is absolute. 1 second follows another, identical and obedient. Clocks reinforce this idea with their reliable ticking. Calendars stack days into neat columns. Everything suggests that time is firm, dependable, unyielding. But as you rest here, you begin to sense that this firmness might be an illusion born of habit. You think about moments from your past that feel closer than yesterday, and others that feel impossibly distant despite being recent. Memory does not obey time's supposed order. Emotion bends it effortlessly. Love stretches moments wide. Fear freezes them. Boredom drains them until they feel empty and endless. Without asking permission, your mind reshapes time every day. Science, when it enters the story, does not contradict these feelings. It listens to them. It asks the same gentle question you are asking now. What if time is not what it seems? What if its rigidity is only apparent, not fundamental? You imagine the earliest humans looking up at the sky, tracking shadows, counting moons. Time begins as observation, not law. It is a way of noticing change. The rising of the sun. The cooling of the air. The beating of the heart. Time, at its core, is a relationship between events, not an object you can hold. As centuries pass, humans build better clocks. Sundials become gears. Gears become springs. Springs become vibrations. With each improvement, time feels more precise, more trustworthy. But precision does not guarantee truth. It only refines measurement. And sometimes, better measurement reveals deeper strangeness. You let that idea settle gently. Precision can uncover mystery, not erase it. Tonight, you are not rushing toward equations or experiments. You are simply loosening your grip. You allow the idea that time might respond to conditions, just as water responds to temperature or pressure. That time might stretch, compress, or curve, depending on how you move through the universe. This thought does not need to feel dramatic. It can feel calm, natural, almost obvious. You notice your body resting here, anchored to the earth. Gravity holds you softly, without effort. The planet spins beneath you at a steady pace, though you never feel the motion. You are moving through space constantly, carried by rotations and orbits you rarely acknowledge. Already, you are in motion far beyond walking or running. Already, your position is not as still as it feels. Time passes differently for things in motion. This is not yet something you need to understand fully. It is enough to sense it as a possibility. A quiet opening. A door slightly ajar. You imagine time not as a straight line, but as something more like fabric. Smooth, flexible, responsive. It does not tear easily, but it can bend. It can dip under weight. It can stretch when pulled. You are not outside this fabric. You are woven into it. As you lie here, seconds pass. But they do not pass alone. They carry breath, heartbeat, thought. Time is never empty. It is always filled with something, even if that something is stillness. Science often begins not with answers, but with discomfort. A sense that something does not quite fit. The discomfort here is gentle. It does not disturb your rest. It simply nudges your certainty. It asks whether the ticking clock beside your bed tells the whole story, or only part of it. You consider how two people can share the same minute and live entirely different experiences within it. One feels peace. Another feels strain. The minute is identical by measurement, but not by meaning. Already, time behaves differently depending on perspective. Perspective, you realize, might be more powerful than you were taught. You let go of the need to define time tonight. Definitions are sharp-edged. They demand boundaries. Instead, you allow time to remain soft, like a shape seen through mist. You trust that clarity can come later, after rest, after patience. Your breathing slows. Thoughts lengthen. The urgency of understanding fades. Curiosity remains, but it no longer pushes. It floats. Somewhere beyond your awareness, scientists are asking careful questions. They are building clocks so precise they can sense differences you cannot feel. They are comparing moments, movements, positions. They are discovering that time does not flow identically everywhere, for everyone, under all conditions. But you do not need their results yet. For now, it is enough to feel the ground beneath you, the air around you, the subtle passage of moments that refuse to feel identical. You rest with the idea that time may not be a ruler, but a landscape. One you move through gently, differently, depending on where you stand and how you travel. And as you drift closer to sleep, another thought begins to form, quiet and inviting. If time is flexible, then what happens when two clocks, separated and moving differently, try to agree on what a second truly is? As your thoughts soften and slow, you begin to wonder how time tells different stories to different clocks, and how even the most precise instruments might quietly disagree in the dark. You imagine two clocks resting side by side, identical in every visible way. They tick together, breathe together, agree on every passing second. In this quiet agreement, time feels dependable again, like a promise kept without effort. When clocks agree, the world feels orderly. You trust them without question. Now, gently, you let the clocks separate. One remains where it is, calm and unmoving. The other begins a journey, carried slowly away. Nothing dramatic happens at first. They still look the same. They still tick with familiar rhythm. But something subtle begins to change, something no eye can see, only careful listening can sense. This is where the story of time grows interesting. Clocks are often treated as final authorities, but tonight you see them differently. They are not judges. They are witnesses. Each clock records time from its own point of view, shaped by where it is and how it moves. When their paths diverge, their stories do too. You rest with this idea, letting it unfold slowly. Time, it seems, is not a single voice speaking everywhere at once. It is a chorus, and each clock sings from its own position in the universe. For centuries, people assumed that clocks must agree if they are built well enough. Disagreement was blamed on flaws, friction, poor craftsmanship. The solution was always better engineering, more precision, tighter control. And for a long time, this worked beautifully. But eventually, something unexpected happened. As clocks became extraordinarily precise, disagreement did not disappear. It revealed itself more clearly. The closer scientists looked, the more they noticed tiny differences emerging when clocks were separated, moved, lifted, or accelerated. These differences were not mistakes. They were messages. You imagine scientists placing clocks on airplanes, on mountaintops, in laboratories deep underground. They begin comparing notes, bringing clocks back together and listening closely. The clocks do not argue loudly. They disagree by fractions of a second, by whispers so small they feel almost polite. Yet those whispers persist. One clock insists more time has passed. Another disagrees, gently but firmly. Both are correct, from where they stood. You feel your mind soften around this thought. Correctness no longer feels singular. Truth stretches to include perspective. Time, you begin to understand, depends on motion. A clock that moves experiences time slightly differently than one that rests. Not because it is damaged or confused, but because motion itself reshapes the flow of moments. This idea is not intuitive. It asks you to let go of sameness. You notice how your own experience mirrors this. A walk feels different than sitting still. A journey reshapes how you feel time passing. Even emotionally, movement alters perception. Science is not far from feeling here. It is simply listening more carefully. Clocks do not know they are moving. They only tick. They count vibrations, swings, pulses. But the universe notices motion, and the universe adjusts time accordingly. This adjustment is small at ordinary speeds, so small you never feel it. Yet it is always there, waiting to be measured. You let this truth rest without urgency. It does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to disturb your sleep. It can simply exist, like a quiet correction happening beneath awareness. The idea that clocks disagree challenges something deep. It challenges the comfort of universal agreement. If time itself depends on where you are and how you move, then certainty becomes local, not global. Agreement becomes conditional. And strangely, this feels less frightening than expected. You imagine two friends standing far apart, each describing the same sunset. One sees deeper reds. The other sees lingering gold. Neither is wrong. The sunset does not demand a single description. Time, it seems, behaves the same way. Scientists give this disagreement a gentle name. They call it time dilation. The word sounds technical, but the idea is soft. Time stretches. It does not break. It does not shatter. It simply flows differently along different paths. You feel yourself drifting as this idea settles. Time dilation does not rush. It waits patiently for understanding to catch up. In laboratories, clocks are synchronized carefully, then sent on separate journeys. When reunited, they reveal their differences honestly. No clock apologizes. No clock corrects itself. Each reports faithfully what it experienced. You find comfort in this honesty. The universe does not force agreement where it does not belong. It allows difference without conflict. Clocks disagree, and the universe remains stable. Reality does not collapse. Instead, it becomes richer, layered, more precise. You breathe slowly, letting this richness surround you. Time is no longer a rigid ruler. It is a relationship. A conversation between movement, position, and measurement. Even now, as you rest, you are not sharing exactly the same time as someone far above you, orbiting the Earth, or someone deep below you, closer to the planet's center. The differences are tiny, far beyond sensation, but they are real. Time quietly adapts to place. This does not isolate you. It connects you. Every clock, every observer, participates in a larger structure where differences fit together seamlessly. The universe keeps track of them all, without confusion. You realize that disagreement does not mean disorder. It means context. As sleep draws nearer, your thoughts slow further. You stop trying to hold time still. You allow it to move naturally, differently, gently. The ticking of clocks becomes less commanding, more like background rain. Somewhere, two clocks are drifting apart right now, beginning their quiet disagreement. Somewhere else, scientists are listening carefully, not to correct the clocks, but to learn from them. And as your awareness softens, a new curiosity begins to glow. If motion alone can cause clocks to disagree, what deeper rule governs this stretching of time, and who first listened closely enough to hear its quiet logic? As the ticking fades into the background of your thoughts, you begin to sense that behind these disagreeing clocks lies a deeper idea, softly whispered by a curious mind who once asked what time would do if light itself refused to change. You imagine a quiet room, far from lecture halls and chalkboards. In this room, curiosity moves slowly, without pressure. This is where the story begins, not with brilliance on display, but with wondering. You meet Einstein here not as a symbol, but as a person who listens carefully to questions that refuse to leave him alone. One question lingers more than any other. What would time do if light always moved the same way, no matter who watched it? You let that question settle gently. Light, you know, travels fast, unimaginably fast. But what Einstein notices is not its speed alone, but its stubbornness. Light does not adjust itself to match the motion of the observer. Whether you chase it or wait for it, light arrives the same way. It keeps its pace, calm and unbothered. This simple observation begins to loosen the shape of time. You picture someone standing still, watching a beam of light cross a room. Then you imagine someone else moving swiftly, watching the same beam. Intuition suggests their experiences should differ. Yet experiments insist that light behaves identically for both. To make this true, something else must change. That something is time. You feel a soft shift as this idea opens. Time does not sit in the background, ticking independently. It adjusts itself so that light can remain constant. This adjustment is not dramatic. It is precise, quiet, unavoidable. Einstein does not force this conclusion. He follows it patiently. If light refuses to change, then time and space must adapt. They stretch and compress just enough to preserve the rule. Reality rearranges itself gently, like furniture moved to make space for an unexpected guest. You imagine time and space no longer as separate things, but as partners. Where one bends, the other follows. Distance affects duration. Motion reshapes moments. Nothing is isolated anymore. This idea becomes known as relativity, but the name feels larger than the experience. Relativity simply means that measurements depend on perspective. It does not mean chaos. It means context. You notice how natural this feels when applied to everyday life. A conversation feels longer when it is difficult. A journey feels shorter when it is pleasant. Perspective already shapes experience. Science is only extending this truth into measurement. Einstein invites you to imagine traveling at great speed. Not hurried, not anxious, just moving steadily. As your speed increases, time for you slows compared to someone at rest. Your clock ticks more slowly. Your moments stretch. This is not because your clock struggles, but because time itself flows differently along your path. You pause here, letting that settle without calculation. Slowing time is not science fiction. It is a natural consequence of motion. It is subtle at everyday speeds, but it becomes measurable when movement grows extreme. Einstein never asks you to abandon logic. He asks you to expand it. To accept that time is not universal, but relational. It depends on motion, on speed, on the quiet rule that light will not compromise. You imagine space as a vast calm ocean, and time as its depth. When you move across the surface, the depth beneath you shifts. Some paths dip deeper, where time thickens. Others remain shallow, where it flows more quickly. You do not notice this with your senses, but the universe keeps careful account. In Einstein's view, no one owns the master clock. There is no single rhythm governing all existence. Each observer carries their own time, shaped by their journey. These times fit together consistently, even when they differ. You feel the comfort in this. Difference does not mean contradiction. It means harmony through structure. Einstein does not shout these ideas. He whispers them through thought experiments. He imagines trains, flashes of light, observers passing one another. These simple scenes carry profound meaning. You follow them easily, without strain, because they mirror imagination itself. You picture standing on a train platform as a train glides by. A flash of light occurs at the center of the train. Someone on the train and someone on the platform disagree about what happens first and last. Both are correct. Time ordering itself depends on motion. This realization loosens something deep. Even the order of events can vary. Not arbitrarily, but lawfully. You rest with the idea that simultaneity is not absolute. Moments that seem synchronized from one place may not be from another. Time does not align itself universally. It aligns itself locally. This does not break reality. It refines it. Einstein's work does not make the universe unstable. It makes it more honest. It removes assumptions and replaces them with relationships. Nothing floats alone. Everything connects. You breathe slowly, allowing these ideas to wash over you without urgency. Understanding does not need to be complete. Familiarity is enough. You are getting used to the feel of a flexible universe. Time stretches when it needs to. Space contracts when required. Light remains constant. These are not competing rules. They are cooperative ones. You sense how gently radical this is. Time is no longer a background stage. It is an active participant. It responds. It adapts. It listens to motion. As you drift closer to sleep, Einstein's voice fades, leaving behind not equations, but reassurance. The universe is not rigid. It is responsive. It bends without breaking. And somewhere in this understanding, a new curiosity begins to glow. If time must stretch to protect the constancy of light, then light itself must hold a special role, quietly setting the pace for everything that exists. As your thoughts slow and soften, you begin to feel that light itself is guiding time's behavior, patiently enforcing a rule that nothing may outrun, waiting for you to follow its steady glow into the next idea. You turn your attention now to light itself, not as brightness or color, but as motion. Light does not rush, even though it moves faster than anything you can imagine. It travels with a calm certainty, crossing vast distances without hesitation. There is no strain in its movement, no effort you can sense. Light simply goes. You notice how different this feels from speed as you usually understand it. Speed, to you, is often tied to urgency, rushing footsteps, racing thoughts, quickened breath. But light carries none of that. It moves fast without feeling fast. It remains serene, even as it outruns every object, every signal, every attempt to catch up. This serenity is part of what makes light special. Scientists discover that no matter how you move, light behaves the same way. If you chase it, it does not slow. If you wait for it, it does not hurry. Its speed remains unchanged, steady as a heartbeat that never skips. This constancy is not a preference. It is a rule woven deeply into the universe. You imagine light as a gentle authority. It does not command loudly. It simply refuses to change. Because light will not adjust, everything else must. Time stretches. Space contracts. These changes are not punishments or distortions. They are accommodations. The universe quietly rearranges itself to keep light's pace intact. You feel how radical this is, and yet how peaceful it sounds. There is comfort in rules that do not argue. Light does not negotiate. It sets the rhythm, and the rest of reality listens. You picture moving faster and faster, approaching light's speed. With each increase, something curious happens. Your clock begins to slow. Not dramatically at first, just enough to be measurable. Moments lengthen. Seconds stretch, becoming wider than those experienced by someone standing still. You do not feel this stretching. Inside your own experience, time feels normal. Your thoughts flow as usual. Your heartbeat keeps its rhythm. It is only when compared to someone moving differently that the difference appears. This is the quiet strangeness of time dilation. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself through comparison. You imagine two travelers, one resting, one moving swiftly. Each feels time passing naturally. Neither senses anything unusual. Yet when they meet again, their clocks disagree. Light's rule has reshaped their journeys differently. You let this idea settle like warm air. Nothing has gone wrong. Nothing is broken. Time has simply responded to motion. Light's speed acts like a boundary, not a barrier but a limit that can be approached without being crossed. No matter how much energy you add, no matter how hard you try, you cannot surpass it. As you approach, time stretches more and more, gently preventing you from reaching the limit. This is not resistance. It is balance. You sense the elegance here. Instead of forbidding faster motion outright, the universe adjusts time itself. The closer you come to light's speed, the more time slows for you, ensuring that the boundary remains intact without force. You rest with this thought. The universe does not shout stop. It whispers slow. Light's constancy also means that it links space and time together. Distance and duration are no longer separate measurements. They are connected expressions of the same underlying structure. To move through space faster, you must move through time differently. This connection feels almost poetic. Movement reshapes moments. Speed stretches seconds. Nothing is isolated. You imagine light traveling from a distant star, crossing empty space for years before reaching your eyes. It does not age. It does not experience waiting. From light's perspective, the journey is instantaneous. Start and arrival collapse into a single moment. This thought feels strange, but gentle. It reminds you that time itself depends on perspective. What feels long to you can feel non-existent to something moving at light's pace. You breathe slowly as this idea settles deeper. The universe is not built around human intuition. It is built around consistency. Light provides that consistency, quietly anchoring reality. Every experiment confirms it. Every measurement agrees. Light's speed remains unchanged, no matter how clever the setup, no matter how precise the instruments. The universe protects this rule carefully. You notice how trust grows from this. When a rule holds everywhere, it becomes a foundation. On this foundation, scientists build understanding. They predict how clocks behave, how particles move, how signals travel across space. Time dilation is no longer mysterious here. It is necessary. You imagine particles and accelerators racing around circular paths at speeds close to light. Their internal clocks slow. Their lifetimes stretch. They exist longer than they would at rest, not because they resist decay, but because time itself flows differently for them. This is not imagination. It is measured fact. Tiny particles confirm what light's rule predicts. You feel a sense of quiet awe. The universe is consistent across scales, from particles to planets. The same rule governs them all. As you rest, you allow the idea of speed to soften. Speed is no longer about haste. It is about relationship. How movement interacts with time. How proximity to light's pace reshapes experience. You realize that light is not trying to win a race. It is simply being itself. Everything else adapts around it. This realization brings calm. The universe does not demand competition. It encourages harmony. As your thoughts slow, you imagine light filling space evenly, setting the tempo for all events. Nothing outruns it. Nothing needs to. The universe unfolds within this limit, stable and dependable. And as you drift closer to sleep, another curiosity begins to form. If light governs time through speed, what happens when gravity enters the picture, quietly bending not motion, but the very fabric through which light travels? As light's steady pace fades into the background of your thoughts, you begin to sense that speed is not the only thing shaping time, and that gravity, waiting patiently, has its own gentle way of slowing the universe down. You imagine yourself standing on a quiet runway before dawn. The air is still, the sky pale and open. An airplane waits nearby, unremarkable in appearance, yet carrying something extraordinary inside. Not passengers seeking destinations, but clocks seeking truth. Atomic clocks, delicate and precise, prepared to travel the long way around the Earth. You step closer in your mind, careful not to disturb them. These clocks do not tick like ordinary ones. They hum softly, guided by the steady rhythm of atoms themselves. Their sense of time is so refined that even a billionth of a second matters. They are sensitive enough to notice changes no human body could ever feel. The experiment begins simply. Some clocks remain on the ground, resting quietly in a laboratory. Others are placed aboard airplanes that will circle the planet, one heading east, the other west. Nothing dramatic is expected. No visible stretching of moments. Only a quiet comparison waiting at the end. You take your seat beside the airborne clocks, listening to the steady sound of engines. As the plane lifts, the Earth begins to move beneath you, rotating steadily as it always has. You are not racing. You are not rushing. You are simply moving differently than those who remain below. This difference is enough. The idea behind the journey is gentle but profound. Motion affects time. Gravity affects time. And Earth offers both, layered together. As the plane flies, it moves with or against the planet's rotation. It rises slightly higher, where gravity's pull is a little weaker. These changes are small, but the clocks are patient. They are listening closely. You feel the comfort of knowing this experiment is not speculative. It is careful, thoughtful. Designed not to prove an idea loudly, but to check it quietly. Scientists do not demand that time change. They ask whether it does. As hours pass, the plane traces a slow arc around the globe. Clouds drift below. Sunlight shifts. Inside the aircraft, the clocks continue their steady hum, unaffected by scenery, uninterested in views. They count moments faithfully, shaped only by motion and position. Meanwhile, on the ground, the stationary clocks continue their own counting. They experience the Earth's rotation differently. They sit deeper in gravity's pull. They are not wrong. They are simply elsewhere. When the planes finally land and the clocks are reunited, there is no ceremony. No drama. The scientists compare readings carefully, gently, knowing what to expect but willing to be surprised. And there it is. The flying clocks do not agree with the ones that stayed behind. The differences are tiny, far smaller than a blink. Yet they are unmistakable. Time has shifted, just as relativity predicts. Motion has stretched seconds. Gravity has shaped duration. You rest with the beauty of this result. Not because it is large, but because it is real. Time has changed measurably, not in space, not in theory, but on airplanes carrying clocks around the Earth you live on. The eastward journey tells one story. The westward journey tells another. Flying with the Earth's rotation produces a different effect than flying against it. Time responds differently to each path. The clocks are not confused. They are precise. They reveal how layered motion truly is. You feel or rise softly. The universe is not vague about this. It is exact. It allows differences to emerge clearly when measured carefully. This experiment does not stretch time dramatically. No one ages years less or more. No one feels strange stepping off the plane. And yet, the implications are immense. Time is not absolute. It responds. It adapts. It listens to motion and gravity alike. You imagine the clocks resting again, now carrying slightly different histories. They have lived through different durations while sharing the same journey around the sun. Their disagreement is not an error. It is a record. This is what makes the experiment so comforting. Nothing exotic is required. No distant stars. No impossible speeds. Just airplanes, Earth's rotation, and clocks willing to tell the truth. You realize how close this brings time dilation to your everyday life. You do not need to leave the planet to experience it. You are already part of it. Every movement, every change in altitude, every shift in speed alters time ever so slightly. The Earth itself participates. Its spin, its mass, its gravity all shape the flow of moments continuously. You live inside this system, carried along without noticing. The Haffel-Keating experiment does not shout its conclusion. It whispers it patiently. Time changes. Not because it wants to, but because the universe is structured that way. You breathe slowly, letting this understanding settle. Science here feels gentle, almost tender. It respects small differences. It trusts subtlety. It allows reality to reveal itself without force. You imagine scientists double-checking their results, confirming calculations, accounting for every factor. The agreement with theory is not perfect by chance. It is careful alignment between idea and observation. This alignment brings a quiet satisfaction. The universe behaves consistently. It does not trick. It does not hide. It simply requires attention. You think again of the clocks, sensitive as sleeping birds, carried across the sky. They did not know they were proving anything. They simply counted. And in counting, they revealed a deeper truth. Time is not something you stand outside of. It is something you move through. And how you move matters. As you rest with this, the experiment begins to feel less like history and more like presence. Even now, time is flowing differently for airplanes, satellites, mountaintops, and valleys. Differences accumulate softly, never demanding notice, always remaining real. You let go of the idea that significance requires size. Sometimes the smallest shifts carry the deepest meaning. And as your awareness drifts towards sleep, another question begins to form, calm and curious. If clocks can feel time change through motion and gravity, how do we build clocks precise enough to hear these whispers of the universe at all? As the airplane fades from your thoughts and the clocks grow still again, you begin to wonder how humanity learned to measure time so precisely that even its quiet stretching can no longer hide. You imagine silence so deep it feels alive. Inside that silence, something vibrates with perfect patience. Not loudly, not urgently, just steadily. This is where atomic time begins, not with ticking hands or swinging pendulums, but with the quiet rhythm of atoms doing what they have always done. You lean closer, in your mind, and listen. An atom does not hurry. It does not tire. It moves between energy states with unwavering consistency, emitting a frequency so reliable that it becomes a heartbeat for time itself. Atomic clocks are built around this trust. They do not measure time by watching motion. They measure it by listening to nature's most dependable song. You let that idea settle. Time, here, is not imposed. It is discovered. For centuries, clocks relied on physical movement. Gears turned. Springs unwound. Pendulums swung back and forth like breathing lungs. These clocks were beautiful, but they were sensitive to heat, friction, and wear. Their time drifted slowly, almost apologetically. Atomic clocks change everything. They remove nearly all moving parts. Instead of watching something travel through space, they count vibrations that happen inside atoms themselves. Cesium atoms, in particular, hum at a frequency so stable that seconds can be defined by it. Not approximately. Exactly. You rest with the elegance of this. A second is no longer an estimate. It is a counted number of atomic transitions, repeated endlessly, faithfully. This precision feels almost infinite. Atomic clocks lose less than a second over millions of years. Some modern versions would remain accurate longer than civilizations have existed. They do not just keep time. They anchor it. You imagine scientists surrounding one of these clocks, not touching it, just monitoring its signal. The clock does not need encouragement. It does not need correction. It simply continues, steady as a star. This steadiness allows something extraordinary to happen. Differences in time that were once invisible become detectable. Time dilation, once a theoretical whisper, becomes a measurable signal. You realize that without atomic clocks, relativity would remain abstract. Motion and gravity would still affect time, but no one could hear it. Atomic clocks give time a voice quiet enough to reveal its flexibility. You imagine placing two atomic clocks side by side. They agree perfectly. Then one is moved slightly higher, where gravity's pull weakens just a little. Almost nothing changes except the clock's rhythm. It begins to run faster by an unimaginably small amount. This difference is not felt. It is not sensed. But it is real. Atomic clocks do not guess. They count. And in counting, they expose how sensitive time truly is to its surroundings. You feel a sense of calm awe. The universe is not hiding these effects. They are present everywhere. They simply require patience to notice. The phrase counting forever feels appropriate here. Atomic clocks do not know when to stop. They are not aware of years or lifetimes. They exist in a continuous present, always listening, always counting, always agreeing with the atom they trust. This constancy allows scientists to synchronize clocks across continents, across satellites, across entire systems. Time becomes shared not because it is absolute, but because it is compared carefully. You notice how comparison keeps returning. Time is not measured in isolation. It is measured through relationship. One clock listens. Another responds. Differences emerge, not as errors, but as information. Atomic clocks reveal that even standing still is not simple. The Earth rotates. The planet orbits the Sun. The Sun moves through the galaxy. Nothing is ever truly at rest. Atomic clocks feel all of this, quietly adjusting their reports. You imagine the Earth wrapped in a web of atomic time, each clock slightly unique, each shaped by motion and gravity, all working together to maintain consistency. This consistency is not natural. It is maintained. Systems constantly correct for time dilation, adding or subtracting fractions of a second to keep everything aligned. Without this care, technology would drift, navigation would falter, communication would blur. Timekeeping becomes an act of listening and correction, not command. You realize how intimate this relationship is. Atomic clocks are not outside the universe measuring it from afar. They are inside it, affected by the same rules as everything else. They do not escape time dilation. They reveal it. This humility feels comforting. Even our best instruments are participants, not observers. You breathe slowly, letting the idea of precision soften. Precision here does not feel cold. It feels gentle. It respects smallness. It values subtlety. It treats a billionth of a second as meaningful. Atomic clocks remind you that reality is not coarse. It is fine-grained. Tiny differences accumulate. Small effects matter. You imagine time stretching slightly around mountains, slowing near massive objects, speeding higher above the Earth. Atomic clocks map this landscape invisibly, drawing contours of time itself. This mapping does not demand understanding tonight. It invites trust. The universe is structured. It behaves consistently. And when listened to carefully, it explains itself. As you rest, the idea of time as something rigid dissolves further. Time becomes a field, responsive and alive, shaped by motion, gravity, and position. Atomic clocks are like sensitive instruments tuned to this field. They do not impose order. They reveal it. You feel sleep approaching gently. Thoughts slow. Precision no longer feels sharp. It feels reassuring. Even as consciousness drifts, atoms continue their quiet song, counting moments faithfully. And somewhere in that steady rhythm, another idea begins to form. If motion and speed stretch time, and atomic clocks can hear it, what happens when gravity itself bends time, not through movement, but through weight? As the atomic rhythm fades into the background of your awareness, you begin to sense that gravity, silent and constant, is already shaping time around you, waiting to be felt in its own gentle way. You feel gravity before you ever think about it. It is the pressure of your body against the bed, the gentle insistence that keeps you grounded, held, supported. Gravity does not announce itself. It does not rush. It simply stays, constant and patient, shaping every moment without asking for attention. Tonight, you allow yourself to notice it. Gravity is often described as a force, something that pulls objects together. But there is another way to feel it, one that feels softer and more intimate. Gravity shapes time. It presses on moments the way it presses on matter, slowing them slightly, quietly, everywhere it is strong. You imagine time flowing like a slow river. Where gravity is gentle, the water moves freely. Where gravity grows stronger, the river thickens, its movement more deliberate. Nothing stops. Nothing breaks. Everything simply moves at a different pace. This idea feels strange at first, but not uncomfortable. You already know that weight changes how things behave. Heavy objects sink. Light ones float. Now you allow yourself to feel that time, too, responds to weight. Einstein arrives here again, not loudly, not dramatically, but with calm clarity. He suggests that gravity is not just a pull through space, but a shaping of space and time together. Massive objects curve the fabric of the universe, and time follows those curves naturally. You do not need to picture complex geometry. You can imagine a soft surface, gently dipped under weight. Anything moving across that surface follows the curve, not because it is forced, but because the path itself has changed. Time, in this view, flows differently depending on how deep it sits within gravity's curve. You notice how this reframes heaviness. Gravity is no longer something that drags you down. It is something that deepens time. Near massive objects, moments stretch. Seconds linger slightly longer. The universe slows itself respectfully around weight. This slowing is not dramatic in everyday life. On Earth, the difference is small, far beyond what your body can feel. But atomic clocks can hear it. They notice that clocks closer to Earth's surface tick more slowly than clocks placed higher up, where gravity's grip loosens. You imagine two clocks again. One rests at sea level. The other climbs a mountain. They are synchronized before the journey, agreeing perfectly. After time passes, they no longer match. The higher clock has aged slightly more. Time has flowed faster for it, simply because gravity was weaker there. This difference is tiny, but it is real. You feel comfort in how ordinary this experiment is. No rockets. No distant stars. Just height, weight, and patience. Gravity shapes time here on Earth, every moment, whether noticed or not. You realize that gravity is not selective. It treats everything equally. Your thoughts, your heartbeat, your aging all move within its influence. Time flows a little more slowly for you here than it would far away from Earth. This does not trap you. It places you gently within a larger structure. You imagine standing on the surface of a much heavier object, something far more massive than Earth. Gravity would be stronger. Time would slow more noticeably. Near extremely massive objects, time stretches so deeply that it almost seems to pause from the outside. This is not science fiction. It is the same rule extended calmly, consistently. You breathe slowly as this idea settles. Gravity does not only bend paths and hold planets together. It shapes the rhythm of existence. It decides how quickly moments pass depending on where you are. This realization does not feel alarming. It feels grounding. Time is not arbitrary. It responds to the universe's structure. Experiments confirm this again and again. Atomic clocks placed at different heights disagree exactly as predicted. Satellites experience time differently than clocks on the ground. Corrections are made constantly to keep systems aligned. Gravity's effect on time is not theoretical. It is operational. It is part of everyday technology, quietly accounted for so that everything continues to work smoothly. You notice how seamlessly this happens. You use navigation systems, communication networks, and timing signals without ever feeling gravity's influence on time. The adjustments happen invisibly, patiently. This invisibility does not diminish their importance. It highlights their elegance. You imagine gravity as a slow breath the universe takes. Inhaling around massive objects, exhaling where space is lighter. Time follows this breathing pattern, expanding and contracting gently. Nothing resists. Nothing argues. Everything participates. You realize that this view dissolves the idea of a single universal now. There is no moment shared identically everywhere. Each location carries its own present, shaped by motion and gravity together. This does not fragment reality. It enriches it. You feel how this perspective softens urgency. If time itself flows differently in different places, then haste loses its authority. There is no single tempo you must obey. You move within your local rhythm, shaped by where you are. You lie here, held by Earth's gravity, your time flowing slightly slower than it would in orbit. This is not a limitation. It is a form of belonging. You are part of the planet's mass, its curve in space and time. You imagine time pooling gently around Earth, thicker near its surface, thinner above. This pool moves with the planet as it spins, carried through space without spilling. Gravity keeps moments close. You let go of the idea that time is something separate from place. Time is not everywhere the same. It lives with you. It responds to where you are. As sleep draws nearer, gravity feels less like a pull and more like an embrace. It holds your body and your moments together, shaping both with quiet consistency. And as your thoughts soften further, a new curiosity begins to glow. If gravity and motion shape time so precisely here on Earth, how do objects high above the planet, moving freely through space, keep their time aligned with yours below? As gravity's steady presence fades into the background of your awareness, you begin to wonder how clocks far above the Earth must constantly adjust their rhythm to stay in step with the slower time flowing where you rest. You imagine lifting gently away from the surface of the Earth, not abruptly, not with force, but as if carried by a slow current of air. The ground recedes quietly. Gravity loosens its hold just enough for you to notice the difference. Below you, the planet continues its steady spin. Above you, space opens, calm and wide. This is where satellites live. They circle the Earth endlessly, neither falling nor escaping, balanced perfectly between motion and gravity. From here, the planet looks peaceful, whole, unbroken. And from here, time behaves a little differently. You rest with that thought. Time changes with height. It also changes with speed. Satellites feel both at once. As satellites orbit the Earth, they move quickly, much faster than anything on the ground. Their motion alone would slow their clocks slightly. But at the same time, they are farther from Earth's mass, where gravity's grip is weaker. This causes their clocks to tick faster. These two effects do not cancel each other. One is stronger. Up here, time moves faster than it does for you below. The difference is small, tiny, invisible to your senses. Yet it matters deeply. Without correction, satellite clocks would drift ahead by microseconds each day. Microseconds sound harmless. But light travels far in a microsecond. Distances blur. Positions shift. You imagine using a navigation system to find your way home. Your device listens to signals sent from satellites, measuring how long each signal takes to arrive. Distance is calculated from time. Location is built from these distances, layered together. If time is wrong, space becomes confused. A few microseconds of error translate into kilometers of mistake. Streets would slide. Buildings would wander. Guidance would gently unravel. You feel quiet appreciation for how carefully this is handled. Satellites do not ignore time dilation. They respect it. Their clocks are adjusted before launch, set to tick slightly slower on Earth so that once in orbit, they align with ground-based time. Even after launch, constant corrections continue. The system listens continuously, adjusting rhythm, keeping agreement alive. This is not a failure of technology. It is a celebration of understanding. You realize that relativity is not hidden away in textbooks. It is active. It works quietly in the background every time you check a map, follow directions, or synchronize a signal. Satellites are messengers between different flows of time. They live in one rhythm and speak to another. Their job is not just to orbit, but to translate. You imagine the clocks aboard these satellites, atomic and patient, counting moments while circling the Earth again and again. They are aware of motion and gravity only through their ticking. They do not know why corrections arrive. They simply adjust and continue. This cooperation between clocks across space feels gentle. No clock insists it is right alone. Each listens. Each compares. Time becomes a shared agreement, maintained through care. You notice how this mirrors human connection. Agreement is not automatic. It is maintained through attention. The satellites never stop moving. They never stop correcting. Time is not something they set once and forget. It is something they tend. You breathe slowly as this idea settles. The world you experience each day depends on invisible acts of correction, on tiny adjustments made constantly, quietly, so that nothing feels wrong. Relativity does not disrupt daily life. It supports it. You imagine what would happen if these corrections were ignored. Signals would drift. Systems would slowly lose alignment. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently, until nothing quite matched anymore. But this does not happen. Because the universe's rules are respected. You feel comfort in this respect. Humanity does not fight time's flexibility. It works with it. It listens and adapts. From the satellite's perspective, Earth-bound clocks seem slow. From your perspective, satellite clocks seem fast. Both views are correct. Agreement exists not because time is absolute, but because differences are understood. You realize how elegant this is. Time dilation is not a problem to be solved. It is a feature to be managed. Satellites demonstrate that precision does not require rigidity. It requires awareness. You imagine the Earth wrapped in a lattice of signals, each one carrying not just information about position, but about time itself. These signals cross different gravitational depths, different speeds, different rhythms, yet arrive coordinated. This coordination feels almost musical. Different tempos woven into harmony. You let this image carry you closer to sleep. The idea that time bends quietly, constantly, and helpfully feels reassuring. The universe is not fragile. It is adaptable. Satellites glide overhead unseen, keeping their careful count, translating between flows of time so that your experience below feels seamless. And as your thoughts soften further, another curiosity begins to rise gently. If time can be stretched, corrected, and coordinated so precisely, what happens when scientists push these limits deliberately, coaxing time itself to reveal how far it can bend without breaking? As the satellites drift silently through your imagination, you begin to wonder how laboratories on Earth gently stretch seconds on purpose, listening for the subtle point where time reveals its deepest structure. You step quietly back into the laboratory, a place that hums rather than speaks. Here, nothing is rushed. Nothing is accidental. Every movement is deliberate, every measurement careful. This is where scientists meet time not as an idea, but as a behavior, something that responds when gently tested. You feel the calm of this space immediately. The lab is not a battlefield where reality is challenged. It is a listening room. Scientists do not demand that time reveal itself. They invite it to. Time dilation, here, is not dramatic. It does not announce its presence. It appears only when conditions are just right, when motion becomes extreme or precision becomes exquisite. The laboratory exists to create those conditions patiently. You imagine particles being prepared for their journey. They are small, unimaginably small, yet full of energy. Accelerators guide them into circular paths, pushing them faster and faster, closer and closer to light's steady pace. As their speed increases, something subtle happens. Their internal clocks slow. These particles live longer than they should. Not because they resist decay, but because time itself flows differently for them. Lifetimes stretch. Moments expand. The particles persist, quietly confirming what theory predicts. You find comfort in how unexcited the lab feels about this. No one gasps. No one panics. The results are expected, measured, repeated. Time dilation is no longer a possibility here. It is a routine observation. You let that sink in. One of the strangest features of the universe has become ordinary through understanding. Scientists do not stretch seconds by pulling on them. They do it by shaping motion, by controlling speed, by creating environments where time responds naturally. Nothing breaks. Nothing snaps. Reality bends smoothly, exactly as it should. You imagine detectors surrounding the particle paths, listening for signs of decay, counting events with quiet precision. The numbers align. The stretched lifetimes match predictions. Again and again, the universe behaves consistently. This consistency is soothing. The universe is flexible, but not fragile. You notice how important patience is here. These experiments are not hurried. They run for months, sometimes years, accumulating data slowly. Time reveals itself best when not rushed. You imagine scientists comparing results across laboratories, across countries, across decades. Different experiments, different methods, same conclusion. Time dilation holds. This agreement is not forced. It emerges. You feel the emotional tone of this work. It is not triumph. It is trust. Trust that reality will respond honestly when asked the right questions in the right way. Time dilation is also tested closer to home. Precision clocks are moved, lifted, accelerated, and compared. Each experiment is a gentle nudge, not a shove. Each result confirms that time stretches and compresses without complaint. You realize that stretching time does not damage it. Time does not weaken. It does not fray. It remains coherent, connected, consistent across perspectives. This is what makes relativity beautiful. It does not create contradictions. It creates relationships. You imagine time as a calm surface that ripples when something moves across it. The ripples are predictable. They spread smoothly. The surface does not tear. You feel how this changes your relationship with time. Time is no longer something brittle that must be protected. It is resilient. It can adapt to motion, gravity, speed, and still remain meaningful. The laboratory becomes a place of reassurance. You imagine standing beside a scientist as results appear on a screen. Small differences. Tiny shifts. Fractions of a second. Yet each one carries deep meaning. Each one says the same thing. Time is not fixed. And that is okay. You breathe slowly, letting the hum of machines fade into a background rhythm. Even here, surrounded by precision and technology, the atmosphere is gentle. Science does not rush sleep away. It invites rest by replacing uncertainty with understanding. Time dilation no longer feels like a threat to intuition. It feels like an extension of it. You already knew time felt different in different moments. Now you know it truly is different, depending on how you move and where you are. This knowledge does not demand action. It offers peace. You realize that stretching seconds in the lab has never broken reality. It has only revealed how gracefully reality is built. The universe anticipates these tests. It responds with consistency every time. You imagine time smiling quietly, if it could. It does not mind being explored. It does not resist being understood. It simply behaves as it always has. As your thoughts slow, the lab begins to dissolve into softness. Machines become background hum. Data becomes pattern. Understanding becomes comfort. You are left with a gentle certainty. Time can bend. It can stretch. It can slow and speed. And through it all, the universe remains stable, predictable, and kind to those who listen. And as sleep draws closer, one final idea begins to form: if time can be flexible, measurable, and cooperative, what does it feel like to rest inside a universe where even moments are willing to soften and wait? As the quiet hum of the laboratory fades from your awareness, you begin to sense that time itself is not in a hurry, and that rest is simply another way of moving gently within a flexible universe. You settle back into the quiet of your room, feeling the soft weight of your body against the bed. The day is behind you now, and your mind begins to loosen its grip on the need to know, to control, to measure. You are not here to win against time. You are here to let time hold you gently. Tonight, you carry with you the soft truth that time is not a rigid ruler, but a flexible river. It stretches when you move quickly. It slows when gravity presses. It changes subtly when clocks are separated and compared. You have seen time bend in experiments and in the careful work of scientists. You have listened to atomic clocks and felt the quiet authority of light. Now, you allow this knowledge to become a comfort rather than a curiosity. Time has always been part of you, but you are beginning to understand that you are also part of time. You are not outside of it, watching it flow. You are moving through it, shaping it with your motion, your position, your perspective. Every breath you take is a moment in time, and every moment you rest is a choice to move gently through it. You feel your breathing slow. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm of your body becomes a soft clock of its own. Your heart beats, steady and calm, marking time in a way that is deeply personal. You realize that you have always carried a clock inside you, one that is influenced by emotion, by movement, by thought. This inner clock is not precise in the way an atomic clock is, but it is true to you. You let go of the idea that time must be the same for everyone. You allow yourself to believe that your time is your own, shaped by your experiences, your body, your environment. This is not selfishness. It is simply recognition. You are living inside a universe that values perspective. You remember the clocks on airplanes, flying around the Earth and returning with different histories. You remember satellites high above, correcting their times so that your navigation systems work. You remember particles and accelerators, living longer because their motion stretches their moments. You remember the gentle way gravity slows time, like thick honey moving through a narrow jar. All of these ideas converge into one soft realization: time is not an enemy. It is not a force you must fight. It is a companion that adapts to your path. You imagine time as a warm, flexible fabric. It wraps around you, shaping itself to your body, your movement, your rest. When you run, it stretches. When you sleep, it loosens. When you stand still, it flows in a steady, gentle stream. There is no wrong way to exist within it. This is a relief. The universe does not demand that you keep up. It does not punish you for slowing down. In fact, it rewards your rest with a different rhythm, a different kind of time. The moments you spend in stillness are not wasted. They are simply longer, softer, more spacious. You allow your thoughts to drift, unforced. You do not push them away. You do not chase them. You let them float like leaves on a slow-moving river. Each thought is a small moment. Each moment is a gentle part of the flow. You realize that sleep is a form of time dilation in its own way. When you are asleep, your perception of time changes. Dreams can stretch minutes into what feels like hours. A deep sleep can make a night feel like a long, peaceful journey. The mind, too, experiences time differently depending on its state. This is not strange. It is simply another example of time's flexibility. You feel gratitude for the scientists who built clocks precise enough to hear the universe's subtle adjustments. You feel gratitude for the way nature reveals its rules without violence. You feel gratitude for the calm certainty that comes from understanding. Your body relaxes further. Muscles loosen. Eyes grow heavier. Your mind becomes quieter. You are not trying to control time anymore. You are letting it move through you. The universe continues its gentle work around you. Gravity holds the earth. Light travels across distances with calm authority. Satellites orbit, correcting their time, keeping your world aligned. Atomic clocks continue their endless counting, unwavering and patient. Everything continues without you needing to intervene. This is a kind thought. You are part of a universe that keeps functioning even when you rest. You feel safe. You feel held. You feel like you can let go. As you drift closer to sleep, you begin to notice the softness of the unknown. You do not need to understand everything. You only need to trust the rhythm of your own breathing, the steady ticking of your heart, and the gentle flow of time that carries you toward rest. In this moment, time feels like a friend. And somewhere beyond your awareness, the universe continues its dance, not rigid, not frantic, but flexible and precise, always ready to reveal another layer if you choose to listen again. And as you surrender to sleep, you carry with you the quiet certainty that time will keep moving gently, even as your mind drifts into the soft unknown, waiting to meet you again when you wake.